It was my day off, so I invited my best friend, Dave, over for a drink at the Plow. I found a quiet corner to sit in. He probably only drank soft drinks because he had a night shift starting at 6. We took turns working for the same paper company, and we were waiting for my wife, Jenny, to join us. I was annoyed but kept my cool. Dave didn't seem to notice my short phrases as we talked. Jenny and I had been friends since junior high school. We mostly socialized and grew up together. We liked Dave, he was a good friend, but sometimes you couldn't rely on him. Even in those early years, we knew he was a player. His word was as solid in its hardness as a lump of warm jelly. But as time went on, my feelings for Jenny grew, and her feelings for me seemed to grow too. Friendship turned to love, and we got married when we were both 23. We get together on weekends, Jenny, me, Craig, and Dave and his latest girlfriend. Dave was always there to help. He could be a little, sometimes a lot late, but he always got his way from an early age. It was obvious that Jenny loved me as much as I loved her, and it was expected that we would get married. All my parents could see what was going on and were happy. Dave was my best man at our wedding, and he was also the creep who had caused me to get on a train to Scotland with no money for the stag party. Fortunately, I had a hunch that something like this might happen, so I stashed some cash and a credit card in a sock. It was a little uncomfortable using the credit card at first, but after a few stacks, I stopped feeling the pain. He was surprised when I showed up for work the next day. He had already made excuses for me. Jenny has always been a flirt from a very young age. I'm sure she didn't realize she was doing it at first, but when her hormones took over, she fully realized it. However, she kept it under control, just a flirty look and a smile, never touching each other. That would be wrong. Why do you flirt with other men? I asked. Right away, it's fun, she replied. It was just a gentle flirtation, not to continue. She even did it with Dave. I just kind of grew up on what she was doing, and it would be weird if she didn't flirt a little. Once when we'd been married for a few years, I asked her, coming home from the pub, "Why aren't you flirting with me?" "It's no fun flirting with your husband in public," she said. "I do it for you in the bedroom." And she did. Our sex life was good. Our company was expanding, and Dave and I had a chance to get promoted and become our shift supervisors. A training course was organized for this purpose. Dave continued his training, and a few weeks later I continued mine. This entailed a weekend away. Dave used to tell me about his antics. He was single and a good-looking guy. I was married and well-behaved. Okay, maybe I drank too much Saturday night and wasn't too awake Sunday morning. A pay raise due to a promotion meant that Jenny and I would soon have enough money saved up to put a deposit down on a house. We planned to have kids as soon as we were settled. We talked about it and looked forward to ceremoniously flushing the birth control pills down the toilet. After all, that's what people do. I noticed a change in Jenny's behavior about 3 months ago, right after I got back from my course. It took me a while to realize it. At first, it was barely noticeable, an increase in sexual intercourse, which I wrote off as me being away for over a week. Then, for a few weeks, the sex practically stopped. I also noticed that the flirting slowed down when we went out. She was still doing it, but not as blatantly as before. A little more subtle. There were other little things too. The house was not as clean as usual, washing clothes was now done on weekends, and she usually did it during her free time during the week. Other chores she did during the week were now done on weekends, taking time away from us. Something was happening. I was now looking for something new. She usually showered when she got home from work, nothing out of the ordinary, except that the shower was now taking twice as long. I also noticed that her paycheck had gone down, so I guess she wasn't working as often as she used to. When I asked her about it, she simply said that there were fewer vacancies as the supermarket was recruiting young people. It was strange when I walked into the supermarket. I didn't see any young people, just the same old crowd. In fact, there was a big recruitment poster hanging there. That's when it hit me. She was having an affair, probably with someone at work. I couldn't afford to hire a private investigator, and my time was taken up with a new job. I could take a day or two off, but it probably wouldn't be enough, and Dave would hear about me having time off. He would have asked me about it, and I didn't want to admit to him that I thought Jenny was walking away from me. I needed more information. I bought some small Wi-Fi spy cameras on eBay and set them up in our bedroom and living room. I tracked her phone with a tracking app. 3 weeks later, I hadn't seen anything. I realized I needed help and turned to Dave. I told him that I thought Jenny was having an affair on the side and asked if he would help me. He was skeptical, he didn't believe it. He said she loved me so much she would never cheat on me, but he offered his help. He could follow her in the evenings when he had the day shift, and when he was on the night shift, he would go to bed in the morning and could watch her during the day. He would pass me anything he found on his shift change. She worked in a supermarket shelving goods, and I told him that I suspected that was where she might have cheated on me. It would be hard to notice if they were doing it in the supermarket. Well, after a few weeks, Dave told me he hadn't found anything and he was sure nothing was going on. He had a friend at the supermarket, and there were no rumors about Jenny having an affair on the side. There had been about other people but not about Jenny. But now I was even more convinced that, judging by the obvious signs, the extra hugs, the sexy underwear, nothing was going to happen next week. She didn't start dressing differently, but she started doing her hair more often and applying more makeup. It was Saturday night and we went to the local pub. There was a small disco there. Jenny usually danced with both of us, with me more than with Dave, but this time she danced with me most of the time. There were only a few dances with Dave, and that's when it hit me. She'd stopped flirting with Dave. She was having an affair and it was with Dave. I was such a fool to trust two people more than anything else in the world, after my parents. That's what gave me away when I figured it all out. What a fool I had been. I needed more information, and this time from myself. Jenny organized her shifts to coincide with mine, and that often helped, but sometimes we had to prioritize work. Her shifts and work schedule varied, so we kept a calendar with dates and times. I went back and double-checked the videotape of her leaving the house, with her shifts on the calendar. That was it. She was leaving our house around 10, even though her shift didn't start until 2. Then, I saw that she had left her cell phone at home. She had to walk past our house to get from Dave's to the supermarket. What a dumbass I was. The following Monday I worked during the day, and Dave worked at night. Her shift didn't start until 2, after I left home. I called in sick, and Jenny took the day shift early, according to the calendar. Today was supposed to be at 4 o'clock, so she'd be home at the same time I was. I watched as she left our house about an hour after I left for work and drove to Dave's house and left just before her shift started. Not surprisingly, our house wasn't as cleaned up since she spent most of the day at Dave's. I took pictures of her going in and out. I had to make sure it couldn't be innocent, and I would look like a complete idiot if I accused them without proof. Monday night I went out for a walk. I knew where Dave hid his spare key. I took 2 Wi-Fi cameras. He wouldn't have noticed them amongst the mess he lived in. I even managed to install one in his bedroom, although recently, when I stopped by to see him, I noticed his apartment was a little tidier. I assumed he was seeing someone else, but he hadn't told us about anyone. It wasn't like he couldn't invite a girl over to the usual bachelor pad where he usually lived. I caught them the next day. Jenny appeared there, but it was not a friendly greeting kiss but a real lover's kiss. I heard her scolding him about the state of the apartment, and she started cleaning up as soon as she was done. He took her hand and led her into the bedroom. They didn't come out of there for 2 hours. That was enough for me. I didn't watch what was going on in the bedroom. I didn't need my heart breaking anymore. I just saved the tape for later. That was last week. I told her I was a little sick and wasn't in the mood for sex. My parents had moved to the South Coast, and I suggested Jenny visit them this weekend. There won't be any sex there, I said. It didn't seem right for me to do it at my parents' house, and I didn't feel like having sex with her after what I'd seen. Besides, in one of the recordings, I heard Dave saying something on the phone that piqued my interest. We got back on Sunday, and neither of us liked to cook, so I suggested Chinese takeout. When we got back, I went for it. I got close enough to Dave's house to connect to the Wi-Fi. My suspicions were confirmed. I asked Dave to meet me at the pub at 5 o'clock before he left for his shift. I bought drinks, including one for Jenny. When he arrived, he asked me what was up. I told him I wanted to wait until Jenny got there. I'm sure I noticed a glimmer of worry on his face, and he had half a pint of light beer, as he didn't want to be drunk on the job. I got a text saying that Jenny was on her way. I put my phone on the table and turned on the screen. I waited for another message. Jenny appeared, sliding over to me and kissing me. She smiled, barely glancing at Dave. "Okay, honey, what's this all about? Why the whole cloak and dagger thing?" "Oh, it's very simple," I replied. "How long have you two been having an affair behind my back?" The look on their faces was amazing. I actually had my old cell phone in the corner recording everything. Jenny muttered something. "We're not like that." "What makes you think that we're not like that?" Dave held up his hands. "That would be bloody stupid, mate," he said. "Of course it wouldn't. We wouldn't do that to you. You must be out of your mind." Both of them had bright red faces. It was then that I pulled out of my pocket the pictures of them walking to his bedroom, holding hands. They had the date and time stamped on them, and then 2 hours later they were back. As well as a picture of them kissing like lovers, not friends. Jenny's face went from bright red to white. She had gone completely pale. I pulled an envelope out of my pocket. I had printed out the separation agreement and threw it on the table. Jenny picked it up and read it while I took a sip of my beer. No, I don't want that," she said. "I'm sorry, I don't want that. You still haven't answered my question." "How long?" "I'm gonna ask you some questions. I know the answers to most of them, so one lie and I'm out of here. I'm gonna sign this piece of paper, and I'm going to see a lawyer tomorrow. This separation will become a divorce." I could see the gears turning in Jenny's head. If we broke up, she could find a way to come back. She saw it as a way to avoid divorce. "About 3 months," Dave replied. "Sorry, buddy, it just happened. I love her. I've always loved her, and she loves me. But she loves you more than she loves me. I'm sorry, we should have been stronger. I'm gonna stop this. I can't let you two break up. It would hurt all of us." They just admitted it, and I didn't need to torture myself by watching them have sex on video. It was Jenny's turn to make excuses. "It happened when I went over to his apartment while you were in your classes. His apartment was a mess. I cleaned it up for him, and then we were sitting on the couch watching a movie and drinking wine. Then he said, 'Look at us like an old married couple.' He leaned over and kissed me, and well, it just happened. We felt guilty, but not guilty enough to stop." I muttered through clenched teeth. "I'm sorry, we were wrong. It just made it more comfortable." She replied. I looked at Jenny. He said, "You love him, didn't he?" "I love you, and I've always liked him. This feeling has only gotten stronger. But I love you even more." "I'm sorry you didn't answer my question. Do you love him?" "Yes," she whispered, looking down at her lap. "Yes, but not as much as I love you. I'm so sorry. Can we get through this? I'll do anything, please." She looked up at me. "I'm sorry. This wasn't supposed to happen. I do love him, but I love you more." "I'm sorry, honey, but you can love more than one person. Over the years, I've grown attached to him, and in the last few months it's turned into love. It only happened 3 months ago while you were away." She was quiet for a while. "How did you find out?" she asked. "It became quite obvious when I realized you'd stopped flirting with him." "You don't flirt with your husband." "Well, you told me yourself you weren't flirting, so the increase in sexual activity was guilt-driven." She looked at me and said, "It was partly a yes, I'm sorry. But sometimes I wanted to be with you. You're better than him." He didn't agree with that. Was she trying to reassure me? Unfortunately, until last week, I couldn't put 2 and 2 together. I looked her straight in the eye. "So, what was supposed to happen when we would start our family? Who was she supposed to become, mine or his?" Her face stretched. "Of course it was yours, sweetheart. Yours and always yours." "How can I be sure of that?" I asked. "I don't believe you. We're alike. You could have his baby and pass it off as mine." No, she said. "Dave and I have talked about this. We'll have to stop when you and I decide to have kids." He nodded his head. I continued. "But I heard Dave say he wanted to start over as soon as the baby was born." She looked at me in horror. No, I'd be all yours. We'd have responsibilities. Dave was going to be the godfather. We'd already talked about it, me and you." "Yeah, I heard you say, 'I love you' to him on the video." I added. "You said that to me this morning when I was leaving for work." And you just said you love us both. So who's it going to be, him or me? You have to make a choice right here, right now. Not in 5 hours, not in 12, not in 24, but right here and right now. She reached out to me. You, my love, will always be with me. Forever be with me. I'm sorry. I'll never see Dave again. I choose you. I'm sorry, but I'll make it up to you, she repeated to herself. I looked at her and said, that's good. But how can I be sure you won't go behind my back? I don't know, but I'll figure something out. We'll move anything. We'll move in with your mom and dad. I'm sorry. I really love him, but I love you more. I'm sorry. I can't help it, but I want to have kids with you. I looked at Dave when I asked you to look after Jenny, because I thought she was having an affair. You had an ulterior motive for telling me she wasn't, because she wasn't, and it was with you. He just nodded. Jenny turned her head sharply, looked at him, and asked, why didn't you tell me? He thought I was having an affair because you would have stopped it, and I love you. Great, it was almost as if I put the words in his mouth. Well, I was really trying to steer him down that path. I opened another picture of him. This time he was entertaining Sorry Bridges, our boss's wife, on the back of the couch. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through the clip of Dave saying, SR, I love you. Let's run away with me from this old man of yours. And what was that one-night stand with Christine? I posted another picture of Dave and the dark-haired girl in his bed. He was lying on top of her. I scrolled through another clip of him asking her if he could see her again. Jenny just sat there with her lips folded in the shape of a goldfish. Tears were running down her cheeks. Goldfish can't cry, can they? I finished my beer, got up from the table, and went to pour myself another. I didn't bother with those two cheating bastards. Later, I'd check out what they'd said to each other on the phone in case there was anything interesting. I planned that in advance. I sat down again, looking at Jenny. I said, oh, I don't think we're going to move. I think we're going to stay here. Dave was horrified. I can't move, my parents live here, and they'll need my help. Oh, I think you'll move sooner than you think. I sent Mr. Bridges, our boss, copies of the video I shot of you and his wife. You really should have cleaned up the couch before you slept with her. And I seem to remember you telling her you loved her more than anything in the world. You wanted her to leave him, so it turns out you can love more than one person. A message popped up on my phone. I just looked at it. I think our boss is waiting for you at work. It read. He'll probably stay late so he can be there when you get there. I slid him some more pictures of him with Mrs. Bridges. Jenny finally realized. She yelled at him. You bastard. You're cheating on me. It's ironic. A cheater calls a cheater a cheater. Dave didn't wait. He left quickly and didn't even say goodbye. Mr. Bridges was a big man. Jenny reached out to me. I'm sorry, honey. I'm really sorry. We shouldn't have done that. Please, let's just forget about this separation. I'll make it up to you. I'll do anything. I'll do anything. Please stay. I told her, stood up, and walked to the window. I saw what I expected and dialed 911. I told the operator, please, you better call an ambulance. I think there's a man being beaten outside the Plow Bar on Muir Road. I prefer not to give my name. I don't want to get involved. They'd have my phone number. I'm sure they could trace me if they wanted to. The message I got earlier was from Mr. Bridges. I'm on the street. I went back to Jenny, and she was still crying. Honey, I'll do anything. Couldn't help it, but it wasn't right. Once we started, I couldn't stop. I'm sorry, we should have been stronger. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'll do anything that doesn't involve another person. I'll dress up for you. I'll always look good. Anything. Another thought occurred to me. So you weren't using protection, then? She looked at me. I'm on the pill. I leaned forward and looked at her. Besides you and Sarah Bridges, how many other women did he screw? We know of at least one of them, Christine, who we had a one-night stand with. It's not about getting pregnant, you idiot. Oh, damn it, I need to get a checkup. That's probably a good idea. Yeah, first thing tomorrow, please take me home. Recognize me as yours, please. I'll never do anything like this again when you're clean. But before you do, I want you to do something. Anything, honey. Anything on the way home. We'll tell your parents what you did. Her face stretched out in distress. No, I can't do that to them. You couldn't do that to them. I really can't. She seemed to realize the gravity of the situation. Then you won't do anything for me? I guess that's it. It's over between us. I took the dissolution of marriage form, signed it, and gave it to her. Okay. I'll do it. Okay. Let's stop there on the way home. Oh, and by the way, you don't have to tell them the whole sordid story. Just admit that you had an affair with Dave and for how long, that's why you left. You don't need to tell them how many times and what else you did for him. When we got outside, there was one ambulance and several police cars. Where did they all come from? Usually, you don't see a single police officer from the end of the week until the next day, and now there are 7 of them here. We walked up to the front door of her parents' house. She was still crying, and her mom helped her into the house, while her dad was there. What's wrong, honey? Is everything okay? Is Craig okay? Her mom asked. She took a deep breath and pulled herself together. Yeah, Mom, Craig's fine. Well, kind of okay. She took another deep breath. Mom, Dad, I have a confession to make. I've been having an affair with David for the last 3 months. It was a very big mistake. We talked about it, and Craig forgave me. Jenny's father was now standing next to her mother. They both looked at me and noticed that I was holding a suitcase. I raised my voice. I never said I would forgive you. Jenny turned and looked at me. I dropped the suitcase on the floor. Her eyes widened, and her hands flew to her mouth. Years ago, you chose me, I continued. But then you decided you needed him too. I'm sorry, it's not enough. I've already met with a lawyer. I pulled the last envelope out of my pocket and handed it to her. Her father took it from me. I swear there were tears in his eyes. Divorce papers. You cheated on me with him for 3 months. You lived with him as husband and wife, so it's not going to go any further than that. You gave me guilt sex and told me you loved him. I saw you cleaning his apartment, I added. Do you realize he just loved a maid who kept his apartment clean for other women? Our marriage will be dissolved in 90 days. The apartment is for rent. You can stay there or move here to your parents if they'll take you in. I don't care which. Just let me know if you want to rent the apartment and give me time to get my stuff. Through her tears, she said, I really do love you. She cried, I love you so much. Obviously, that's not enough. You made yourself at home with that lying bastard. He cheated on me as a friend, he cheated on you, he cheated on Mr. Bridges, and I suppose in a way he cheated on Sarah with you. He would have made a good husband, wouldn't he? In case you were wondering, I concluded. With those words, I walked out the door. She had a choice. She could love 2 people, but her choice was sex with the one she loved the least, and it looked like it was shitty sex.